are doing the final thoughts review of the HPI RS4 Sport 3 Flux. This is the Audi e-tron Vision GT edition. It is a 1/10 scale, and we've done a few runs with this car. I'd say somewhere in the ballpark of 3 to 4 packs through this RC to get a good assessment as to what it's all about. And for you guys who are new to the channel, welcome. This is the video where I will go through my thoughts of the RC. At this point, we've done an overview, a few runs with this RC. This one's a little special. We did some tweaking of it to get it to run right. We are at the point where we can finally talk about our experiences with the RS Sport 3 Flux. So typically the agenda for the final thoughts review video is that I would go through the electronics, talk about the drivetrain, talk about the handling and suspension, durability, workability, support, the skill level for this RC. Is it worth it, and would I buy again? But I'm gonna give you guys a spoiler on this one.
Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Wait.
Everybody calm down.
We're gonna jump right to, is it worth it? Currently, this car is selling for $409 US. It's a lot of money for what it's going for, and we're gonna jump right to would I buy it again? Flat out, no. I would not buy this car again.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
I do plan on keeping it to do some modifications to get it to run right because I have some other plans for it. But I gotta say, the way that it comes out of the box, if you're a newbie trying to buy this, if you're a guy that is experienced, don't waste your money. I personally feel that there are a lot of other offerings out there better than this car. For you guys who have followed me for a while, you know I'm not that type of RC dump on an RC. But this one, I will have to say, it's not worth your money, guys. It's not worth your time. There are other RCs you could put your time in and get a way better performing vehicle than this. I mean, I'll go through some of the issues that are going on with this car so that you can see that I'm just not rambling on about how bad a car is without actually telling you what's going on with it. But first off, this body, as amazing it may look, it doesn't work. It rubs. You have to, I mean, a lot of people, because of how it looks, you don't want to trim a brand new body, and especially when it looks like this, but you have to. For me, the body was rubbing right on these extra dishes that they add on to the wheels. You can remove them off, but it still was rubbing against the wheel. I had to shave off, and I don't know if that's coming up in the camera, about that much on each side of the shell. I still wanted to keep the shape, so I just shaved off that much on the shell on both sides. Some of the first run, it was uncontrollable. I had to take the disc off to get it to run right.
I don't know if
it was rubbing underneath from the rear, and that's because, and I'll show you, the design of the body, it's going to rub. I don't know if you guys can see the markings on mine, but it's going to rub. The only way to alleviate that, you have to raise the body up. And even then, since it still goes underneath this extremely low body, it's going to scrape. Now, my table's not completely even. It does bow in the center here, and I'm going to show you something. I don't know if you guys are going to pick that up. I may have to take my mic off and let you hear it and see if you guys can pick it up. I don't know if you hear it. I'm going to go slow. That's the chassis rubbing on the little bit of bow that's on my table. If anybody ever has a foldable table, you know they're not extremely flat. They do bow very little in the center. This one does, no exception. But the chassis is so low to the ground that it rubs right on it. And no matter how flat your surfaces are, I don't know if the camera's gonna pick that up or the lighting is picking up, That's how much scraping you're gonna get. And I was driving this on some very flat surfaces, you know, for like the second and the third run, and it just rips it to shreds, guys. I don't know how much longer, if I keep driving it in this fashion, that it could keep going. Now, the other issue with this car is that you will have a hell of a time trying to keep this thing to go straight. It wobbles, it drives all over the place. And this is the transmitter that comes with it. So it has a TF41 transmitter. I've used these on so many HPI vehicles. I've never had an issue with it until this car. And I gotta say, it's not the transmitter as much as this needs some form of stability control to get it going. You're gonna think it's the servo, you're gonna think it's the links, all this going on in the front, and it's not. It's just how quirky and how poorly set up this car is, that it is all over the place. And the only way to fix it is to throw some type of gyro stabilizer in this car to make it correct itself. And once I did that, I threw in the GT5 in this car and it started going straight. It was not a problem. Just going through some of the other things that you notice up on the car. Simple things. The car's supposed to be built for speed. It comes with Deans. It takes a 2S and a 3S pack. I think a brushless car with this much power should really be pushing, you know, a better connector on it. I have XD90s on there, but anything better than a Dean's connector at this point would be perfect for it. I like that the center drive shaft is sealed off. Now this has a spool driving it, which is perfect, and you can get spools for the rear and front diffs, which would really increase the speed of this car. The electronics that are in here are just rebranded Hobbywing ESC and motor. I didn't have an issue with them. I didn't have a problem with heat or anything like that. I've ran this car straight through the LVC every time I drove the car, except for probably the first time I ran it because it just drove horrible. But outside of that, most times I was able to get it to LVC, so wasn't really an issue in regards to heat or anything like that in regards to the ESC and motor. But I'm gonna show you something. That's the rear. That's what you're getting. So the rear is bowing so much that's why the car goes so low. But that's another issue that's going on with it, that the ground clearance in the rear is just downright horrible, which is why the back of the body rubs on the ground. And I adjusted the body post in the rear to kind of alleviate that, and it did a little bit, but it still does scrape quite a bit. As you guys can see here, the marks on the chassis did raise the ride height of the car I just moved into the inner hole of the suspension arms, and it did give me a little bit more clearance in the rear, and that's going to help you out. But the real problem is that the shock shafts are too short. I don't know if there's a limiter going on inside the shock. I know that there is definitely no bump stops outside of the shock, but I don't know if there's a limiter going on inside the shocks that you have to remove that would give you a little bit longer length on that shock shaft, or you would just need to replace the shock shafts with a longer shock shaft. I haven't taken these shocks apart to really identify if that's the issue, but that's another thing you're gonna have to look into. At 409 for this car, the links here should all be adjustable, especially for a car that you're going to want to go extremely fast with. If it's stating that it's 70 miles per hour, especially once you change the front and rear diffs to spools, to have fixed links, you're going to want to tune it a little bit better. At this price point, these should all be adjustable. All these links, the camber and the toe should be adjustable links in the front. Also in the rear, to adjust your camber should also be adjustable. I'm not too concerned about all the other composite parts that are on here, like the composite shocks. They are coilover and they do have a screw down adjustment. I don't have a problem with them being composite, but what I do have a problem with, as I mentioned, is those links. Dated chassis on this RC, a dated controller. It does work, but it is dated. I didn't have a problem with these tires being unbalanced or anything like that. I thought they worked well. The dish looks nice. These tires They do well. They do wear down fairly quick. I think that's because what you tend to do a lot with this car, because of how it's set up with the lock spool that's in the car, it does do a lot of sliding and drifting, and that's kind of where I want to lead with this, especially with the brushless setup in there. I want to do like some power slides with this car. I want to be able to drive it in that fashion, kind of like a parking lot basher. More than a speed run car. I think if you're going to try to gear this to be like a speed run car, one, there are other options that you can use, you know, other cars out there that you can use that would probably be a lot less of an investment to get it up to that. And two, I think this car is going to require quite a bit of tuning to get it to be a decent speed run car. I think if you're trying to keep it with that 50 mile per hour range, you know, sub 50, somewhere in that ballpark, I think it's going to be a great car for that. Guys. But I think once you're trying to accomplish that 70 plus mile per hour on this car, you're going to have to do a lot to it. I think you're going to have to start tuning out what's going on in the front, possibly replacing the servo, maybe even, you know, as I said before, putting adjustable links so you can really tune the car better on this. And definitely, as I mentioned earlier, changing to a spool setup in the front and rear diffs on this car, because that is an option for it. So some things to think about, but you know, as I said, I didn't think it would be fair to do a true final thoughts review on this RC. I think it would be best just kind of stating some of the things that I saw and expressing them to you guys so you guys are fully aware as to what you're getting into if you decide to buy this. This shell is based on a video game that has this car in it, and I thought it looked good off the bat. On this dated chassis, it just doesn't work, guys. It just doesn't work. I do plan on continuing to tweak and adjust the front. I don't know if I'm going to change the links out. I don't know if I want to dump any more money into this. As I said, at 409, I think I'm kind of tapped out as to where I want to spend more money on this car. I did get it to the point where when I drove it with when I did drive it with a gyro in there, I am able to drive it straight. I do these things so that you guys don't have to do them. And I have to clearly say, if there's an RC that I can have you guys stay away from because of the price point and what they're offering, I'm gonna try to tell you guys what's going on, and this is one of them. Breakages, I've flipped this thing on its lid, but it's an on-road car. Unless you smash into a curb, there's not really much you're gonna break on them. That if you're someone who's new into the hobby, you're not gonna wanna do it, and especially if you've been in the hobby for a while. As I said, at 409, I think you're gonna be able to find better offerings out there. Yes, the body is amazing, but it's on a fairly old chassis from HPI. Where HPI is right now in regards to like parts availability and availability of some of their RCs, I don't know if it's worth taking a chance on this car. Yes, you can reach out to them and express to them some of the issues that you're having with the car, and they will rectify those problems or will work with you to try to rectify those problems. But I don't know if it's worth even getting into that. But we're gonna leave it here, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram for our latest posts to the channel. This is Ready Set RC, signing out. Thanks again, guys.